He was a savior of the Republic, and later, its would-be conqueror. He was a hero in the Mandalorian Wars and a villain in the Jedi Civil War. He traveled to distant worlds shrouded in the dark side of the Force. He would walk the path of both the light and the dark, and is considered by many to be the most powerful Force user of his time. Loreseeker presents the complete travels of Revan, and the lore along with it. Born circa 3994 BBY in the Outer Rim, some rumors would suggest Revan was born on Deralia, a planet on the outskirts of the Outer Rim territories far from the everyday problems of the Galactic Center. It is unknown as to how Revan was located by the Jedi Order, but he was discovered and relocated to Coruscant, and the Jedi Master Kreia would begin his teachings.
At one time, Revan was my Padawan in times past, long ago.
Kreia would be a very difficult teacher not just to Revan, but to all her pupils. Her teachings and philosophy of the Force would shape the Jedi Order in ways no one could ever have imagined. Revan would also befriend the Padawan Alec Squinquare Gesimus. At some point, the two would be moved from Coruscant to Dantooine at the Jedi Enclave. Unlike traditional Padawans, Revan had many masters, Kreia being his first, then the Twi'lek Zar Leston, and Leston would recognize Revan's desire for greater knowledge, and believed he would become champion of the Jedi Order. This statement was shared with Master Vandar Takar, who is the same species of the future Grand Master Yoda. Other teachers were Master Dorak and Aaron Kai. The Jedi historian Mikhail would say to those who ask,
Master Jar taught Malak, and Revan had many masters, including Jar, Kay, and Dorak. And towards the end of the training, Revan sought out many other teachers to learn certain techniques. And it is said that he went to his first and final master to learn how to leave the Order entirely as she had. And such teachings and their teachers is why I harbor doubts. Why I wonder if something is missing from the Jedi Code.
During his time on Dantooine, Revan would be fascinated with and research thoroughly the study of Force bonds and other uncommon Force techniques. Revan and Alec would become Jedi Knights at the Enclave before the year 3964 BBY. It is not known of his exact year of knighthood, but before the age of 30, he was well known throughout the Order as charismatic, powerful, and a leader. It was during this time that Revan would return to Kreia in matters on how to lead the Jedi Order.
But in the end, he turned back to me, when he realized there was nothing more to be learned from the Jedi except how one could leave them forever. Revan was power. It was like staring into the heart of the Force.
Revan never made it to leaving the Order, however, as the warriors in Mandalore had began their neo-crusade of the Galactic Republic far out in the Outer Rim. The Jedi Order would make it known they would stay out of this war, as it was clouded in the dark side of the Force, and that the true threat had yet to reveal itself. The young Jedi Knight had other plans. Eager to face the enemy in combat and regardless a noble cause, Revan gathered many followers. The first to rise up was his best friend Alec. Against the Council's wishes, Revan and a band of Jedi Knights would meet the Mandalorians in open war. Revan's first stop would be to the planet Taris, in hopes to recruit Jedis from the outposts there, such as Jedi Master Lucien Dre. Unsuccessful in this recruitment, Revan would venture on his own for the first time and head to Onderon and his forest moon Duxon. It is unknown what Revan did here or found, but whatever he discovered was enough to return to Coruscant and plead for a full Jedi mobilization for war. Again, the Jedi Order declined. Revan would spend the next year building his resources. Traveling to Cathar, it was here when the planet Sirocco was decimated by the Neo-Crusaders. This act could be felt through the Force in waves. It was around this time the Mandalorians would put bounties on both Revan and Alec and other Jedi. This would have Alec rename himself to Malak. After many months of war preparations, Revan was finally ready to unleash his assault against the Mandalorians. The Force guided him back to Cathar, along with numerous other Jedi Knights. While here, Revan would locate a mask in the low tide of the water. As he went to pick up the Mandalorian mask, it initiated a vision to the group of Jedi, of Cassus Fett slaughtering the Cathar species. The mask he found was of a lone Mandalorian female, killed for her defiance against Fett's war crimes. Drawing his violet lightsaber to the sky and wearing his newly found mask, Revan vowed to wear it until the Mandalorians were either defeated in combat or brought to justice. This would mark the turning point of the war. Within weeks, Revan, Malak, and Mitra Surik would win numerous battles. Revan would participate in the Battle of Duro, which would have been a complete disaster had he not arrived with a fleet of Interdictor-class cruisers. Now, the supreme commander of the Republic armies, Revan's tactics would push back the Neo-Crusaders in the Outer Rim. His tactics was not considered to be Jedi-friendly, as he would adopt a victory at all costs method, sacrificing smaller planets and resources to bulk up territories of advantage. Moral shortcuts, this would be known as, and the first glimpse of the dark side within the young Jedi. Over the next 2 years, Revan and Malak would discover a star map, revealing the location to the ancient space station known as the Starforge. The first map was on Dantooine. Many would suggest they discovered this while being trained, but a force vision of Revan later in his life would reveal that he was already wearing his mask and his less traditional, darker robes. From Dantooine, Revan would travel to the Shadowlands of Kashyyyk, the Sith homeworld of Korriban, and then to Malachor V, where Revan discovered the Treyas Academy. The Sith Temple, along with the Starforge and the war, was the tipping point for Revan and Malak's descent into darkness. Revan would begin his preparations for the end of the war there on Malachor, with a plan of pure evil. After his small odyssey, Revan returned to the front lines fighting at Terrace, where he saved a young Jedi named Juhani. Revan's first and only loss would come soon after at the Battle of Jaga's Cluster. Revan and Malak's forces would be thwarted by the Mandalorian commander Cassus Fett. In return, Revan would order Mitra Surik to assault Onderon and Duxon, and he would tell her to win at any cost. She did this, but at the cost of her soldiers at roughly 10 to 1 of the rate of death of the Mandalorians. Revan's fleet would move to Althir III and win his biggest victory yet. This battle would see nearly 30% of the Mandalorian resources captured or destroyed. For an unknown reason, Revan would switch his lightsaber to blue and order the Zabrak engineer to begin construction of the mass shadow generator, a pivotal part of his plan for Malachor. Revan discovered that Malachor to be somewhat of a holy and religious planet to the Neo-Crusaders, a weakness he did not plan to let slip by. Revan's plan was simple yet elaborate. When looking at the small details, from the outside looking in, Revan had lured the Mandalorian fleet close to the planet, and would order Mitra to lead a small fleet against them as bait. Meanwhile, Revan would assault Mandalore's flagship. Simple enough. Now, looking at this from a different point of view, besides Malak and Mitra, all the Jedi present at Malachor were not strong supporters of his cause and the moral shortcuts he would use, along with the Republic forces he regarded as unloyal or weak. Regardless, as all plans do, when the battle began, things were different. Revan was delayed by a scouting party, and Mandalore had enough time to recognize something was amiss. Mandalore would challenge Revan to single combat, and although Mandalore was not a Force user, his armor and skills with a vibroblade, he was a formidable foe. Revan would face him aboard the flagship and defeat him. In his dying breath, Mandalore would reveal the secret that the Jedi Order feared all this time. His scheme was manufactured by the Sith, and he had been manipulated at a world called Rakide. Revan received the coordinates to this planet, and Revan would take Mandalore's mask and armor as his spoils of war. Although the Mandalorians were defeated, and now without a leader, Revan still ordered the activation of the mass shadow generator. This act would destroy thousands of ships, tens of thousands of lives, and completely decimate the surface of Malachor, making the planet nearly inhospitable. In the aftermath of the superweapon, the surviving Mandalorians issued the unconditional surrender, ending the Mandalorian Wars in the year 3960 BBY.
Yes, I have heard tales of Malachor V and Revan's part in it. I know you served there in that final battle. It must have been a terrible thing. You speak the truth. The war's end was merely another beginning, and what seemed a victory for the Republic was far from it. Many believed the Mandalorians defeated Malachor V, but the Mandalorians taught the Jedi much through battle, and so it was that Malak, Revan, and the Jedi that followed them discovered their true natures in the Mandalorian crusade. But you know this. Consumed them? No. Taught them. Defined them? Yes.
From here, the Jedi Order demanded the return of all Jedi to answer for their actions. Revan and Malak refused and vanished into the unknown regions en route to Rakide to seek answers about the true Sith. He would climb to the top of the twin spears and find the answers he needed. A Sith tomb of Dromoth II and a datacron confirming Mandalore's tale. Revan would leave Mandalore's mask and armor here to ensure it would never fall back into the Mandalorian hands. Revan would then use the datacron and enter Sith space to a planet called Nathema. Nathema was completely void of the Force, and Revan would soon learn it was from the unnatural forces of the Sith Emperor Vitiate. Revan and Malak's investigation here would lead them to the Sith capital world of Dromund Kaas, and after months of being undercover, the two, barely hanging on to the Jedi ways, decided to face the Emperor themselves instead of warn the Jedi Order. This fight would be an immense failure, and the Emperor would bind their minds to his will and send them back to the Republic to find the Starforge and destroy the rest of the Republic. They would return as Darth Revan and Darth Malak. First up, back in known space, Revan would journey to Manaan and Tatooine to complete his star map and discover the location of Lihon, where the Star Forge was located. This would be in the year 3959 of BBY, and his arrival on Lihon would mark a pivotal point in galactic history. After manipulating the Rakata and letting him into the Temple of the Ancients and granting him access to the Star Forge, Revan would spend many months exploring and studying in the lower levels of the temple. It was here he made his Rule of Two philosophy and his first holocron, a holocron later to be discovered by Darth Bane in the very temple of Revan's research. It was also during this time the pair of Sith broke free from the mind control of the Emperor. However, they were still twisted by the dark side of the Force and believed the Emperor's orders to be of their own desires. Against the liking of Malak, Revan would spend even more time studying the Star Forge. This would create a rift between the two. Malak wanted to be the aggressor, meanwhile, Revan wanted to be systematic and precise with his actions. Revan would depart to Nar Shaddaa with a piece of the Star Forge. Revan learned that even though the power of the Star Forge was great, it could also be his demise. Malak would remain on the space station, furthering his corruption. On Nar Shaddaa, Revan formed a cult of loyalists who would begin researching and building the Infinite Engine. Revan used his time wisely and was ready for his 20-year plan of conquest of the Republic. His first attack was at the shipyard planet of Foros. This battle marked the beginning of the Jedi Civil War. Revan was then en route to Talos IV, but before his fleet could arrive, Malak and Saul Karath had used the Leviathan to conduct an orbital bombardment, thus furthering the two from friends to adversaries. Revan then traveled to Corellia, Sirocco, and Echani and deployed the use of his assassination droid HK-47. Revan would also accept a duel with the Echani general, which of course Revan would win easily. Revan would then travel to Korriban and establish a command center and Sith training center in partnership with the Zerka Corporation. While on board Revan's flagship, Malak would openly challenge his master's tactics, which resulted in the loss of Malak's jaw. In the year of 3957 BBY, the Jedi devised a plan to kill Revan with a small Jedi strike team led by Bastila Shan, a young Jedi with a gift of battle meditation. This mission took place in the Outer Rim. It resulted in the capture of Revan by the Jedi, but with help and the betrayal from Darth Malak, who destroyed the bridge of Revan's flagship, resulting in a massive brain injury for Revan. It fractured his mind. And also, the result no one could anticipate was the force bond that was instantly created between Revan and Bastila, as she force pushed him away when Malak fired upon his ship, saving him from death. This event would bring Revan back to Dantooine at the Jedi Enclave, where he would recover and his memory was wiped and he was given a new identity. This plan from the Jedi Order was in hopes to discover the location of the Star Forge and win the war. Revan would be assigned to the ship the Endar Spire, which was commanded by Bastila Shan, in the skies above Taris. And as the Force would have it, the Endar Spire would be attacked by Darth Malak, and it resulted in the surviving crew to use escape pods to the surface of Taris. Revan, along with Karth and Nassi, would conduct a rescue mission for Bastila Shan. When they found her pod on the surface, it had already been scavenged, and evidence suggested that she was taken to the lower levels of Taris. While doing the investigation, Revan's charisma was still there, and he would gather a group of companions: Mission Vale, Zalbar, Cantor's Ordo, T3M4, and of course Karth. The group was successful in rescuing Bastila, and they would commandeer the Ebon Hawk and return to Dantooine. Revan would then begin his training as a Jedi Padawan. Although his memories were erased, his powerful presence in the Force could not be hidden. While all this was happening, Revan was having dreams of his past. Dreams that revealed the location of these star maps. This would spark the mission of the Knights of the Old Republic. In search for the star maps, Revan and his ragtag group of companions, now with Juhani, would travel to Tatooine, adding HK-47 to their group and finding their next location on Kashyyyk. While entering the Shadowlands, Revan would locate Jolee Bindo and another piece to the puzzle. Revan and his group would then travel to Manaan, and after their mission was complete there, their band would encounter Malak on the Leviathan. This encounter with Malak resulted in the reveal to Revan that he was in fact Revan, and the capture of Bastila. Narrowly making it out alive, the group decided to still follow Revan to his last location of the star map, Korriban. After a long and tedious trek to the Valley of the Sith Lords, the last star map was discovered, and Revan and his group would travel to Lihon. On Lihon, Revan would have many trials, ones that he overcame with the light side of the Force. Revan, Juhani, and Jolee would face a dark side Bastila in the upper levels of the Temple of the Ancients. Revan then traveled to the Star Forge, where Malak waited. This was no ordinary mission, and it should be regarded as one of the most dangerous missions of Revan's life. The Starforge was ready for him. Canderous Ordo would lead his task force of Mission, Zalbar, HK-47, and Karth to defend the hangar and the Ebon Hawk. The Republic would face the Sith fleet in the skies around the Starforge. Revan, Juhani, and Jolee would need to stop Bastila and her battle meditation, and then of course, the dreaded Malak was waiting. When they landed on the Starforge, they were met with a Jedi strike team to aid them in the ensuing battle. It was here in the halls of the Starforge Revan showed his true might. Endless hordes of droids, troopers, and dark Jedi rained upon them, and Revan rose to the occasion, a champion of the Jedi Order. Eventually, the Jedi would reach Bastila and the two would face each other, and Revan would defeat her and bring her back to the light side. The two would confess their love for each other, and their bond would be strengthened. Revan would leave her to her battle meditations to aid the Republic, and he would make his way through more hordes of Malak's armies. When Revan reached the bridge of the Starforge, a final confrontation was now ready to take place. Revan versus Malak. Brother versus brother. Jedi versus Sith. Hero versus villain.
Inexorably pushed to this final confrontation, Revan. I see now that this can only be settled when one of us destroys the other. No, Revan. This time our confrontation can only end in death. Yours or mine. Once again, we shall face each other in single combat, and the victor will decide the fate of the galaxy.
Revan and Malak would duel in what could arguably be one of the greatest lightsaber duels of their time. Revan would achieve victory over Malak, and this would mark the end of the Jedi Civil War in the year 3956 BBY, a 3-year war that devastated the rankings of the Jedi Order. Revan did not waste any time after his medal ceremony along with his companions. He would travel back to Korriban to face the Sith in training, and he drove them back into the unknown regions. Another victory for the redeemed Jedi Knight. Revan then returned to Coruscant to face the Jedi Order. The Council offered to rebuild his training at the rank of Padawan, and Revan refused, with his memory slowly restoring and his knowledge of the light and the dark. He felt that it was disrespectful to accept the rank of Padawan. Revan would also marry Bastila, furthering his distance from the Jedi. Revan wanted to remain in the Jedi and teach them his new view on love and understanding of the Force. The Jedi refused, and they wanted to banish him, but they were unable to because he was a war hero, so they reluctantly granted him the title of Knight and allowed their marriage. They had stipulations, however. Revan must never teach his outsider ways or be able to take on a Padawan. Revan agreed. He would then remain at the Jedi Temple for 2 years, and in the year 3954 BBY, he would be plagued by nightmares. Nightmares of his past as a Sith. Worried something was amiss, Revan contacted his good friend Canderous Ordo. Revan would have Ordo talk to other Mandalorians in hopes of discovering the truth about his dreams. These dreams would show a snowy planet and glimpses of Mandalore's armor. Meanwhile, Revan began his search for Meetra Surik. This would have him cross paths with Atris in the Jedi Archives, a meeting that was not cordial. Ordo would contact him 3 weeks later, and he revealed to him the clans are assembling on Rakai. The speaking of this planet restored more of Revan's memories. Soon after, as Revan was gearing up for his next mission, Bastila revealed she was pregnant. With this news, Revan was revitalized that he was doing what was being guided by the Force and to protect his wife and the child. This would be the last night Revan would spend with his wife, as he would never see her again. The next morning, Revan boarded the Ebon Hawk along with T3M4 and Canderous, and the three would depart into the unknown regions. Arriving on Rakai, which resulted in Canderous Ordo reclaiming Mandalore's mask and his title, Revan would use what he learned from this trip to retrace his steps he and Malak took years prior. Revan would then travel to Nathema, and it was here he would be overwhelmed with a rush of memories, which resulted in Revan unable to defend the Ebon Hawk against the Sith ship. But not just any ship, this one was commanded by Sith Lord Nyrus and Lord Scourge. The pair of Sith would capture Revan and transport him to Droman Kos. He would be held prisoner in Nyrus' stronghold dungeon against the knowledge of the Emperor Vitiate. Revan would remain a prisoner here for 2 years, with daily doses of drugs to suppress his use of the Force. Revan being Revan, the 2 years would not be unproductive, as he would use his time to learn a great deal about the Sith Empire. In the year 3950 BBY, Meetra Surik would conduct a rescue mission with the help of the turncoat Lord Scourge, and it was a success. Revan was released from his cell, and he was given an antidote, and to Revan's surprise, Meetra gave him his Mandalorian mask from the wars. This relic finally returned every single one of Revan's memories and his knowledge in the Force. This would incapacitate Revan. Meanwhile, Scourge and Meetra would have to face Lord Nyrus in combat. Losing the duel, Revan would finally wake up. he would exit his prison cell, turn towards Lord Nyrus, and say,
I am Revan Reborn, and before me, you are nothing.
This duel lasted seconds. Revan unleashed a force blast so powerful, countering Nyrus' force lightning, that it disintegrated her into ash. Retreating to a cave on the outskirts of the city, Revan would spend the rest of his night watching a holo recording of Bastila and his son Vader Shan. The next morning, Revan, Mitra, and Lord Scourge would follow a plan they made the night before to confront the Emperor. Unfortunately, Revan did not learn of his and Malak's past mistakes in facing the Emperor. This mission was also unsuccessful, as the turncoat Scourge became a double turncoat. Revan faced the Emperor alone, who had the upper hand, using his lethal force lightning attacks that would superheat Revan's mask, and it caused it to melt to his face. As Revan was absorbing the unsurmountable pain, T3M4, the loyal droid, tried to save him, which caused his destruction. As the Emperor was about to restart his attack, Surik and Scourge arrived in what would have been a 3-on-1 duel. Scourge, terrified of losing and the future, stabbed Mitra in the back with his lightsaber. Revan would be horrified at watching his best friend die, and he would be captured again, and this time, he would be held in a specially constructed prison locked in stasis. This would allow Revan to live for centuries in prison, but at the cost of his mind. The Emperor would feed off of Revan's mind and his force abilities. But as powerful as Revan was, he was able to resist just enough to put doubt in the Emperor's mind. During these hundreds of years of darkness, Revan would be tortured by the Dread Masters of the Sith. Meanwhile, his cult followers on Nar Shaddaa, the Order of Revan, would complete his infinite engine, and they would form a group called the Revanites, a philosophy of Force users finding the balance between the dark and the light. Revan would use what little energy remained of him to delay the Emperor from invading the Republic, but in the year 3681 BBY, it finally happened, and the Great Galactic War would begin 269 years after his capture. Revan still did not give up, and he would use his force powers to bring doubt into the Emperor's mind. In the year 3653 BBY, the Treaty of Coruscant was signed, bringing a false peace to the galaxy and starting a Cold War. The Force Ghost of Mitra Surik was able to convince a Jedi to form a strike team to free Revan in the year 3642 BBY. After 308 years of being in prison, Revan was freed and taken to Tython. After a brief recovery, Revan left Tython. Not willing to trust the Jedi in defeating the Emperor, Revan wanted to deal with the matter himself. Revan went to the Foundry, an ancient Rakatan space station located in the Nathri system, a foundry built in an asteroid and capable of producing thousands of battle droids. Revan placed his loyal droid HK-47 in charge of building and leading this droid army. Although he was the galaxy's most powerful Force user, Revan's body had succumbed to centuries of torture, and his mind was fractured numerous times in his life, and a Jedi strike team consisting of 4 members entered the Foundry and defeated him and HK-47. His body and mind attempted to become one with the Force, but his dark side mind refused and took over his body. Now insane and fully submerged in the dark side, Revan used the shell of his body to become Darth Revan once again. Using his cult of Revanites, Revan would lead his followers back to Lehone.
We got company, ships, capital-sized, whole bunch of them. Can't tell if they're yours or ours, but one of them is dropping in to visit.
As important as Arcus and Derek were to the cause, their deaths won't stop us. They won't even slow us down.
That voice. I've heard it before.
It's Revan.
I almost had the infinite army I wanted so badly. But even without them, I have enough. I've been reborn. My mind is clearer, my power intensified. And now, with the Order under my command, I'm unstoppable.
This Revan Reborn would gather an immense army in a short period of time. His Revanites were tasked with building an infinite army with the Rakatan technology. Revan's forces would suffer defeat before the army could be built, and Revan would travel to Rishi. Revan would capture his descendant Theron Shan and claim a victory over the Republic. Revan would learn that a weakened Emperor was at Yavin 4. He wasted no time and took all of his remaining forces to confront him. At the same time, a team of both Republic and Imperial forces who banded together to end the war arrived on Yavin to also defeat the Emperor. However, This team and Revan did not want to work together.
I spent 300 years in lockstep with the Emperor's mind. I know what he's become, what he wants. The Emperor must be destroyed completely, or he will return and consume every last living thing.
Revan and his Revanites would easily overwhelm a group of Imperials guarding the Temple of Sacrifice. The Emperor planned to use this temple for a Sith ritual to consume all life on Yavin and restore his strength. Now, Revan planned to do the same. With the help of his rebuilt companion HK-47, he was able to hold off Republic and Imperial forces for a while. However, Revan was forced to retreat deeper in the jungle. Revan's light side half formed a spirit and was able to convince the strike team that the Revan they're dealing with is not the true Revan and he must be defeated and put to peace. The strike team led by Grandmaster Satil Shan would be victorious, and the two halves of Revan, both the light and the dark, would merge and they would become one with the Force, leaving only his mask and lightsaber behind. The Emperor was able to restore his strength through the deaths of the battle. In the defeat of Revan, the Emperor won once more. In the year 3626 BBY, Revan's Force Spirit would appear before Kira Carson and Satil Shan, and he would aid them in defeating the Emperor once and for all. Revan would finally reach peace, 368 years after his birth, and his legacy as both a Sith and a Jedi would live on for thousands of years to come.
Savior, conqueror, hero, villain, you are all things, Revan, and yet you are nothing. In the end, you belong to neither the light nor the darkness. You will forever stand alone.